Looks like we might be good. Looks like we might be good. Welcome to Purge the BS, Purge the BS AM session. Once again, wilding out on a Wednesday. Hump day. Let's go. Let me give y'all a couple of seconds to jump on in here, because I got to talk about something important. Truth be told, it's always important, right? I gave it 30 seconds. If you're not here yet, that's on you. But today, we are going to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart. So before I get started, make sure you go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. Bang the bell, get all the notifications, and jump on anytime we go live here from Purge the BS, because that's what we're about to do, is Purge the BS. Today, I want to get into something that's near and dear to me, and it's near and dear to me because I'm a parent, and I'm also a grandparent. And I was at one point, I was the child, right? And I had parents. And I'm able to kind of see these things in retrospect and go from, things that my parents did that I did or didn't like, and things that I did that my kids did or didn't like that they're trying to improve on with my grandkids. And I really started to think about a situation that happened a few years ago. And I believe that there is a particular segment, and I'm not sure how it's going to be going forward, but I feel like there's a particular segment of kids these days who've been set in a position and are doomed to fail. And it's not their fault per se. It is the adjustments and changes that happen in the world and the environment around them as their brains were being developed started to give them a little bit of, I don't know what to call it, like bad habits is probably a good way to describe it. Pretty bad habits. Oh, let me see if the chat is working. If anybody's in the chat, can see the chat, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, a hello, something in there. Let me know that you're with me on a Wednesday. Now, before I get into this, y'all make sure that if you have children, that you show those children love, okay? And not all love is all roses and red velvet cake, right? Some love is tough love. And I don't mean abuse the children, okay? But they say it takes a community to raise a child, right? And I also believe that in that same regard, it takes a community to destroy a child. And what I mean by that is the environment that the child is in, not just within their household, but the environment, the world environment that they're introduced to, has to be conducive with them being good people later, right? So something happened, what was it? A few months ago, they just rolled everything out and they changed. This is just one of the points I'm going to get on, but they changed the, like the grading scale for students, right? And I was a bit surprised, to say the least. I'm going to let y'all peek it with me, just take a quick look over here. Hold on a second. Hopefully y'all can see this. All right. Hopefully you can see this that I got going on up here. But basically, it's, you know what? Let me give y'all the full screen. Let me give y'all a full screen real quick. So the issue, well, not the issue, but the change that was made was for grading schools and students. Now, the classic GPA, which was just 90 to 100, 80 to 89, that's the classic, real easy to come up with your GPA, really easy to figure out what your grade level was and how to get you in the honors classes, so on and so forth, right? So in the past year, they decided to roll out this new thing. Now, it started with COVID. I'm just going to say this. COVID may not have infected everyone, right? It may not have infected everyone, but it definitely lowered the standards of what was acceptable as far as education and things of that nature, right? And as a result of that, they had to change the grading scales to which they graded the students, to which they graded the schools, everything. Basically, they had to bring the standards down, right? They had to bring the standards down in order to be fair to the people who are either students or teachers at these schools. And the reason why is because the schools were getting a bad rap because the students weren't passing stuff, right? The students weren't, they were failing math, they were failing, English, science, whatever. They weren't performing at grade level, or at least what grade level was expected to be, right? So the schools would get a bad rap and a bad grade because of that, and that would cut off funding and so on and so forth, and then the schools would be underfunded and become garbage. So that's how garbage schools start. It's not like people just come into school and start destroying the school and it just stays destroyed. As the level of what's expected from the school when it comes to grading and it comes to dealing with the student elevating and graduating and stuff like that. Nowadays, they just want to give you a product that is simply ready to work. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you do have to have some discipline in being a decent employee, right? But where the issue is we're not training the children to run the business. We're training the children to just be. To just be there. To just be a body in a space. To just take up room. To just leech off of resources. To just pull from other benefits. We are not teaching these children. And I don't mean all of them. Like I said, there was this little gap of time where some things got a little screwy, and I'll be honest with you, it was definitely connected to COVID. Kids coming home for 2 years to parents that didn't want to teach them, to a community that didn't want to teach them. I mean, there was a few people trying to do stuff, but you couldn't even go around folks. So everything had to be done remotely. A lot of people weren't really tech savvy, and the kids really wasn't for it. They just went, Kids already don't like school. Now you're going to tell them they got to do school at home, and they're not technically homeschool kids? So they tuned out. They tuned out for 2.5 years. When they tuned back in, which is what's going on now, they dropped the grading scale. So I'm gonna bring this back over here for y'all so you can see what I'm talking about. So they dropped this grading scale, and as you can see, the kids have now been given the impression that a D is like a good grade. To do something at 60-ish% is top-notch effort and top-notch grading. And that's top-notch bullshit to me, because when I was coming up, a D wasn't acceptable anyway, let alone was it a passing grade or an A, which is what it looks like now with this scale. This is a 64% or more is an A. Now, I'm sure I'll get some fact checkers in the comments, and this could be the school grade. Like when they grade the schools, like greatschools.com and all that, and this could be the school grade has been adjusted as well. But what that means is the school is accepting 64% of its job being done, right? See, this is where I start to get frustrated. If it takes a community to raise a child, right? And it also takes a community to destroy a child, then whose job is it to come up against the community? if the community is the problem, and that community exists not only in the house, we're talking about the environment. We're talking about what's become acceptable. We're talking about not being able to properly give the children a reward system. Like, do this, receive this. Do this, receive this. And then build their lives around the reward system. It's a way of motivating people. But now, because we felt bad for the kids and we felt bad for what was going on in society, and we decided, okay, let's just spoil the shit out of these kids. And now what we have is kids that really, they're not prepared for a world that's not going to spoil them. Now, us adults, we already know. We already know. The world is not, they don't care. They don't care about your daddy issues. They don't care about your mommy issues. They don't care if you got dropped off on a doorstep somewhere and somebody randomly raised you at an orphanage. They don't care. You are an energy ball that is designed to do something for the rest of the world, and the world is trying to find value in you. So they create this value through what we called the education system. And I call it the inducation system, because when you educe, that's when you take things out. And educe is the foundation for the term education. Educe is to basically bring out the best of. And education stopped being that a while ago. They started in what do they call it? Indoctrination, or whatever you call it. They started just putting information in, but not bringing out the creative side of the kids. So the kids tuned out. Now they don't have ways of outlets as far as gym and, like, I hate to call it recess, but they don't have that energy outlet. You just start throwing them a bunch of information, and then you don't even give them homework, no way to reference it the day after. It's like the news cycle. It's like 30 minutes of this, then on to the next thing, then 30 minutes of that, then on to the next thing. And to me, that's not how you properly raise a kid. When I was coming up, there were shows, not necessarily for small children, like in the middle area, let's say middle school age children. And the shows had educational foundations within it. There was math, there was reading rainbows, there was a lot of different things going on when I was coming up that were based on education, because education was important at the time. But what I'm realizing now is the community has taken a step back on education, and we've lost the kids. They have no perspective over what's coming because we haven't effectively prepared them. The grandparent group, to which I am a part of, is too damn young these days. I'll tell you what, my grandmother, my grandfather, my parents, when I was coming up, neighborhoods respected them. Like the neighborhoods that they lived in, they had been living there for years. They were well respected within their communities. The kids in the area, acted right when they saw them. They would stop cussing or whatever. You see what I'm saying? When my grandparents would come around, people would tighten up. When my parents come around, people tighten up. And if they don't, my folks will say, hey, tighten up. But the next generation, that's the Gen Xers, that's me, and I guess the generation right after me, the kids feel like we're like equal. So they don't tighten up. As a matter of fact, they try to talk to you like you a damn adult. And you want to be like, who are you talking to like that? And you got to remember that they're minors and then the laws are different. But I'll be there on the 18th birthday to deliver the chest punch that is necessary. Okay? Make no mistake. I'm like an elephant. I don't forget nothing. But what my main issue is, or my main point, is because we ended up with a generation to which education and being, and not just education, because school education is only part of educating the mind. It's only a piece of it. What's really education is how you learn to maintain emotional stability and financial responsibilities. And, you know, that's the real world. Most of your life is spent balancing checkbooks and making sure that, you know, the people that you care about, that you have provision over, are okay. So you got to make money. So there's like, it's its own kind of moving hamster wheel, right? But when you're a kid, you're born into the world with whatever the world gives you. Our minors now have been given technology. They've been given additional powers. I don't want to call it that, but it's like this. I never thought about calling nobody when I got a butt whooping. It wasn't, did CPS exist back then? I don't even know if they did. The best I could do, I would have called my grandmother and she would have said, if you got your butt whooped, it's because you did something to get your butt whooped. That's how my grandmother was. Because she trusted that my parents weren't just lashing out and trying to kill me. Now, before I get myself in trouble about anything that I've done as a parent, the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. And I am no big religious person, but I sure do believe that. And I'll tell you why. Because I've met kids who were spared the rod, and now they're 40, 50 years old, and their lives didn't turn out the same as the kids who were not spared the rod. The kids who had the discipline, the kids who were in the house doing what they were supposed to do, the kids that had chores they had to do before they went out, the kids that were waking up a little earlier than 2 o'clock in the damn afternoon, the kids that understood organization and, you know, like really took their time to pay attention to and respect their elders. But here's where the problem is. The elders ain't elder no more. The elders ain't elder no more. I hope y'all catch that. The elders are no longer in that same moral authoritative position. To be honest, some of the elders are the ones letting certain things go because they're older now. Like the grandparents of the kids sometimes are like, they don't even want to tell the kids no. They don't want to tell them anything. They want to ask the parent, like, can I tell them no? Yeah, tell them no. I trusted you to raise me. Well, I didn't trust you, but you raised me and I turned out okay. So if you tell my kid no, who am I to come behind and say, no, you don't get to talk to my kid like that? My mother wasn't like that with my grandmother. You know why? Because that generation was different. It's as simple as that. What they stood for, what they allowed was different. And so my folks, I guess the boomers, they took a different approach to it. And it became a mixed approach. And that mixed approach, some people started doing too damn much. Sorry, it happened. Some people were doing too much and some people were actually abusing their children. And it was because, I'm sorry, I had to take this energy drink and get some cheeks later. I'm sorry. Shout out to Cameron. Anyway, so when the parents decided, hey, we can't discipline the kids anymore, and I'm talking the generation before, the generation after is unable to figure out how to properly deal with the kids. So what did we do? We just tried to give them everything we didn't have. And then we come back, and when the kids act up and act like normal spoiled ass kids, we're like, but I gave you everything. And didn't realize that that was the problem. Make them work for it. I got to work for it. Everybody's got to work for it. People got to work for stuff. If you come up in this world and you don't have an idea that 64% of a completion, right? 64% out of 100% is not good. It's not. But they're trying to teach these kids that it is. So let me get to the underlying point and why I had to purge this BS. Okay? If you teach the kids that the 64% is acceptable, and that's all you need to have an A, But in college or other levels of training, if you want to go to trade school, things like that, you still need to have a real GPA, not that weird grading scale thing, right? So let's put it in perspective. In an overall sense, black children tend to have lower grades than their counterparts, right? In an overall sense. There's plenty of them who were straight A students. Shoot, my kids were good students, but there's also plenty of them who are not. So if you put that into a larger scale, then what do you get? You get a bunch of black children who believe that below average is excellent, and then they get to some point in life where they want to move forward, and someone references that and says, no, that's not excellent, and they're held back because of that. Couple that with the other side, and I wasn't big on affirmative action, but that has now been removed, right? So it is about the merits. It is about the grades. That's how that's what it's coming down to now, which is what I guess we asked for, right? We want people to be judged on their merits and their character. Well, guess what? If your kid is an asshole with low grades and is judged on that, how good is life going to be for that kid? It's not going to be good at all. So we need to be more adamant about the school situation. We shouldn't allow this as the parents. But we can't even ground kids effectively anymore. Remember when you used to, like back in the day when I used to get grounded? I used to get like grounded from TV. Now I know this is probably crazy to some of y'all, but there were certain shows that only came on at certain times. And if you wanted to watch that show, you had to be tuned in at that time. There was no on demand. There was none of that. You had to be there on time or you was going to miss the first 2 minutes or whatever, right? And you would get grounded from TV. Like you can't turn on TV. And this is before cell phones. So there was no other way to really entertain yourself other than like reading a book or playing with whatever toys you happen to have or whatever the situation was. But we used to get grounded from TV. And you couldn't go outside. That was arduous for a kid at like 11, 12, 13 years old. Oh my God, that was horrible. I'm just in here. And if you are in certain households and you just in there for too long, your parents will come up with something for you to do. So you can't just sit around and do nothing. And they the reason why you sitting around doing nothing, and they'll have you clean in gutters or whatever the hell, right? When was the last time these kids got grounded from TV? I know they get their cell phones taken away. And I know there's a few of them that get their game systems taken away. But there's never a blackout. Game, phone, tablet, TV, off. Disconnect their Wi-Fi devices from the damn thing, from the router, and like blackout. Who's even doing that anymore? So a lack of discipline is why these kids is wilding. And we can't impart discipline because we want everybody to be freaking happy all the time and all happy-go-lucky. I want kids to be happy. I wanted my kids to be safe. I wanted them to be prosperous. And I wanted them to be a benefit to society when they went out into it, right? And I felt that happiness would come as a result of being that type of person. And in general, my kids seem like pretty happy folks. They're not out here just angry all the time. And because my goal was to make them good people. Good people get good responses. You see what I'm saying? If you're a nice person in public, you smile at people, they smile back. So good people get good responses. If we're not raising the children to be good people, how are we going to expect the world to respond to them? And then they come out here immature, unable to handle rejection, unable to understand that they shouldn't be just getting paid because they exist. I guess maybe that's a product of the welfare system. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe before, because I don't know if before welfare existed, right? In any regard, whether it was food stamps or just the cash assistance or whatever they did. Before welfare existed, the concept of being paid to exist only really was reserved for people who had like a pension or, you know, had worked somewhere for a while, like retired military, or, you understand what I'm saying? It wasn't because you haven't done whatever's necessary to take care of yourself. Now, some people are disabled. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about disabled people. Disabled people do what they can, however they can, and more power to them. What I'm talking about is the able people who think that they can just live off of a system because they're here. And this is all up and down the scale. This is males, this is females, this is kids. Look, if you are a teenager and you think that, like, you're a teenager, you're you know, if you're a kid and you think that life is someone else basically taking care of you, then you're not prepared. Some of us, we don't get lucky and have kids early. Let me just say that. But we do get blessed. Me having my kids a little earlier forced me out of my kid phase a little bit faster because I had to be responsible for somebody else. So I couldn't be a kid anymore. I was somebody's dad. So me being who I was, that changed how I was moving, and it worked out. But if I didn't have the foundation I had to start with, I don't think I'd have been anywhere near as decent of a parent as I ended up being. It wasn't that I did anything. It was that there were certain things imparted in me. If you want this, you do this. If you want your kids to be safe, you want to show up in school. If you don't want your kids to be diddled and fondled, and they, make sure that the community knows who your kid is. That way they know this kid is being paid attention to. Show up at the PTA. Show up at the back to school night. Do it. My folks did that. So I did that for my kids. But nowadays, if you go to a PTA meeting nowadays, in most communities, and I haven't been to all of them, let's just say for giggles that the school has 1,000 kids in it, right? The PTA might be 14 people. And one of them has to be there. Like they work there or something. They already had to be there. And the rest is the parents. The parents ain't showing up, man. And the reason why the parents aren't showing up is because the parents don't have any support from the community. For those parents that actually want their kids to do well and not be out here doing some goofy stuff all the time, if you say that, then people are like, oh, you're being suppressive and you're not letting the child express themselves. And I don't want the kid to express themselves yet. I want them to learn first, understand, and then be able to express themselves, right? My kids, I don't know. My kids are cool. Don't get it wrong. They definitely made some mistakes and they gave me a run for my money. But the goal was always the same. To give them the right tools to get out in this world so that they can prosper and not be goofy. I don't want to make any more of that goofy guy. You know, the goofy people you see in the world? I don't want no more of them. So as a parent, you do have an opportunity to at least say, all right, well, I'm not going to put that product out into the world. That's what it should be. But that's not what it is. What we're trying to do nowadays, or at least the parents that I'm seeing, they're all trying to compete to be their kids' freaking friends. And they're trying to be nice all the time. Like, look, my parents weren't mean, but they weren't always just giving me stuff. And now I look back on it, they probably could have bought me a bunch of the things that I was asking for. I was an only child. Well, at least the only child in that household. You see what I'm saying? But now looking back on it, I appreciate that they made me work for that allowance. I appreciate that they made me go get a job before I started driver's ed to teach me some responsibility so I could put some gas in this car I think I'm going to drive. These concepts are simple. My parents weren't rich. They weren't dropping nothing on, a car on me on a sweet 16. But they did give me the means to get my own vehicle. They did say, hey, go here, get a job. And who wants to work? Nobody really wants to work, but you got to. You got to work on something that earns something. So if you're fortunate enough to do something like what I'm doing here with this podcast, you can do what you want to do and you can earn doing that. That's cool. But if not, in the interim, you got to go sit in the traffic and go to work. And the earlier you start that idea, the quicker they catch it and the better off they are. Because by the time they get 25 years old and they go to any job, somebody who's their age is already a manager there. You ever think about that? You're 25, they're 25. That means they were in high school, same time you were in high school. You go to this job, you're level 1, and the person who you were in high school with is the manager. And it's only because you just got a slower start. Doesn't mean you're not smart. It's just they started earlier. So start them early. Start them early, man. Anyway, hold on. Let me get into the second piece of this. Because like I said, the main premise of this is to get off my chest the fact that I'm worried about the kids. I'm worried about the generation that's right behind me. And then within, kids that were born, let's say between like '05 and let's say 2012, like in that area. They were like middle schools, elementary school kids when COVID came in. That group I'm worried about. I am. They're losing respect for the outside world because nobody has taught them that the world was moving before they got here. And we haven't taught them. It takes a community. It really does. But if somebody says to your kid, hey, stop doing X, Y, Z because it's not a good look or whatever, they catch a kid doing something. There was a time when you could get a butt whipping from the whole neighborhood and wasn't no police coming out. Wasn't nobody reporting nobody or none of that. I don't know why that changed. Somebody explain that to me. Why did that change? Why were you know why it changed? Because the people in the community became crappy people. And you can't trust crappy people to discipline your kid. And people started doing too much to the kids. People started snatching up people's kids. People started, touching kids and da-da-da-da-da. There was a time you could go trick-or-treating. Didn't have to worry about razor blades in the candy, and now it's fentanyl. First of all, who's putting fentanyl in the candy, man? Like, what? That's scary as hell to think that I could send my kid out, they come back with a laced bag of candy corn. Now, fortunately, most people don't eat candy corn, so that probably wouldn't go too well. But the point I'm trying to make is it's a fear that we have now that was built off of the community doing goofy stuff. So the kids are a product of the community. They are a product of their own environment. But as the adult, we have the ability to see some stuff. And we're supposed to correct it where we see it. It's as simple as that. So speaking of things that we should have corrected when we saw them, I don't know if y'all know who Lil RT is. And I don't know him personally, okay? He's a little young rapper guy. And let me bring him up over here. Yeah, he's a little young rapper guy, right? Now, he makes basically drill music, and I'm pretty sure in this clip he's like 10. He's like 10. Now, the only reason why I can show his particular image in here is because it was televised. This is a televised situation, but normally you don't want to show kids in any regard in your in a video. But like I said, I'm understanding the whole YouTube situation now, so we can look at this for a second. But basically, they brought Lil RT on here to one of those 20v1 type of things. Now, this might not be a brand new clip, but it's the first time I saw it. So they brought him on here, and I'm not going to play much of it because my stomach will start hurting. But let's just see what they talk about.
Blue.
All right, so look, since you're a little taller than RT, is that a problem for you or no? So like you would date him? But you came out here though. All right, so she's still safe? All right, you good, come on.
All right, first of all, I don't think anybody who's 10, 11 years old should be on a dating show. Where the parents at? Because they need a chest punch right here. You know where that hard plate is right there? If you take your knuckles and boom, right there, that's what they need. That's what they need. I just, my kids were that age at some point. I just couldn't see it, I guess for the sake of parody. But the funny part was he asked the little girl if she would date him, and she was like, no. You know why? Because her parents probably told her she can't date nobody. So regardless of height or whatever, she's not even old enough to be thinking about dating. Just like my youngest son always talking about he got a girlfriend. No, you don't. You got a girl who's a friend. Y'all cool. Got a girlfriend. Okay. Can you drive her somewhere? Can you take her out? No. So you got a girl who's a friend. But anyway, so there's been a lot of flack about this gentleman in this show with the kids and low RT situation. I'm not going to really get into it. This is the Edwards marijuana family sponsored show. As you can see, he's got the logo there, and they deal with moving around cannabis products. So I just, not to say that if things are legal, things are legal. That's cool. But here's the problem is you got kids on here, and even though that particular substance is legal, it's not legal for kids, just like a cigarette. Like you wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, let me give it a couple more minutes here.
I'm trying to see what you like. All right, next.
Yo, what's your name?
You good? All right, come on. All right, next
I'm
person.
not really sure what's going on now. Is he looking for friends? Is he just looking for buddies? Who are these guys?
I like the song of. Shut up. I like the song about 6 miles. Appreciate it.
Oh, they nervous. So you think they could be your friend, RT?
Yeah.
Both of them? All right, come on. Oh boy, I'm just nervous. So RT, like, do you got a lot of friends that's like kids too, or no?
I don't know what's going on. You know what? I'm not even going to put myself through it, because what I'm realizing is that's garbage too. If you've heard Lil RT's music, I mean, you can have what you want. You can do what you want. I'm not going to be. I think that the music is very adult for a kid, and I think his parents should probably be fined. That's all I'm saying. I think his parents should have to answer for that the same way, and not necessarily right now. I'll tell you what, just keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him for the next, let's say, 10 years, and then let's come back and talk about it. I don't think he's going to be standing on stage running for office and doing community activism and all that. I don't think so. I think we're going to see him on the news having committed some act or being alleged that he committed some act. That's what I think. And if you can't see that predictively, then you're a crappy parent. I don't know his parents, but I'm just saying, like, now, truth be told, the dating show thing, there was girls and boys, and I think he was just trying to find people to hang out with. But the guy said the term date. Would you date him to the little girl? He said that. Like I said, I think the original concept was because Lil RT is like a rap artist, he doesn't have a lot of close friends because he's busy and doing his thing. So he was trying to find friends. But this dude, the dude, let me show you to him with this big smile on his face. He's happy because I'm sure he made a bunch of money off of the video because it went viral. But this guy asked the little girl if she would date a little boy. I don't know. Are we dating that early? I mean, yeah, I guess you still have the quintessential, what is that, the play date? But let me just say this. When I was younger, there came a certain time where them play dates, I wasn't playing. You understand what I'm saying? And then that stopped not too long after once people realized that I was no longer playing. Once I got about 10, ain't no play date no more. We going anyway. Anyway. So the other piece I have, okay? The other piece I have. I know it's not a lot of folks in the chat, but like I said, this is the first week of the morning show. This is just to let the algorithm know that we're here so we don't get fined. But I think this is my main issue. The kids got it twisted. But they got it twisted because the community also got it twisted. The grandparents got it twisted. Everybody got it twisted, and now the kids got it twisted. And we blaming the kids because to a certain degree, they become responsible. Your mind grows, and you're able to see things objectively as you get to a certain age. So there is a point in time where it's on them. But before we get to that point in time, can we please just impart the damn reward system again? Can we please impart the reward system again? Do this, get this. Do this, get this. Do this, get this. And then watch it work, and then watch the kid understand that concept and really start pushing it. But we got kids out here thinking that they literally raising themselves. Who put the food in the fridge? Let me take it a step further. Who paid for the electricity that you using when you go in the kitchen to flip the light on? Who paid for the internet that you're using? Who paid for that wireless device that you have in your hand that you love so much? Who paid for that? Who gets you to the school when you miss the bus? Who gives you money for your clothes every time you need clothes? Who, even if your parents don't have nothing, and they take what little bit they have to give to you as a kid, if you don't recognize that really I'm not going to say they don't have to do something, but appreciate it, man, because they had to work for it. They had to utilize the reward system just to get whatever the heck it is that they're giving to you. That's for the kids. Now, I know the kids ain't going to see this because the show's not made for kids, but that's what I would love to say to them if they ever see it. Respect the game, but the game is a reward system. That's it, and that's all. They want you to believe that you can just fall into $1 million because you cool or because people like you. Not saying it doesn't happen to certain folks on the internet, but those odds are actually lower than the damn NBA. And it's pretty hard to get in the NBA or the NFL. So if your odds of making $1 million with no craft, just being online as a personality are low. Now, not saying you can't make a little bit of money doing that, but what you want to do is push something else that you're working on. That's what the goal is, to utilize this platform. Just like I got Freeman Services, which is the sponsor of every show here on Purge of the BS. And I need to talk about that a little bit more too in the future, but everything is for something else. It's not for this. I'm not going to live and die on any of these forums. But I'm putting out this content because I want to have these conversations. And I think if we start talking to each other correctly, we might be able to get to some actual solutions for once, instead of just griping and annoying each other. And that's all we ever do anyway. These kids annoy me these days. They're weird as hell. You can't tell them nothing. And it's not even 100% their fault. It's a mixture of community and COVID and probably something in the food. I'm not, there's a lot of preservatives and weird chemicals and stuff. And these kids have been eating it their whole lives. Some of us started out on more organic food, and then over the last 20 years or so, things have really changed. But You know, we were eating lead paint back in the day. So, I mean, to each his own, right? So these kids are probably, I'm not going to say they're doomed. I'm going to take that out. Because doom just is like, forget about it, right? They're not doomed, but they definitely are, they're definitely behind. And they're only behind because the reward system has been taken away. 64% is an A. No, it's not. You see what I'm saying? But we have programmed them into this, and then we got the nerve to be mad because somebody stopped affirmative action. Well, you know what? If affirmative action was pushing in D-level people, then really it wasn't worth it. It was a bad idea. But don't miss the flip. Now that they got your kids thinking that D-level work is acceptable, they flip everything over to, now we're going to do it on the merits. And now your kids are totally classed out, totally unqualified for anything beyond just regular employee work, regular work. They classed them out. And they think they're excelling. If that's not the biggest mind twist right there, they think they're doing fine. We know that they're not doing fine. And we can't even get them to see that they're not doing fine because hindsight is 20/20. And they haven't lived yet to be able to get to the point that an adult is at to say, yeah, maybe I should have done a little better in high school. Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have done that. Who knows? I know I have certain things that I look back on and I'm like, yeah, I could have probably tackled that a little bit differently and gotten more out of that if I would have disciplined myself and really put forth the effort. These kids think this is the effort. 64% is an A. Are you kidding me? And I'm supposed to get a kid to shoot for 85 or better, 85% or better? How can I get my kid motivated when you're telling them that 64% is an A? And then the world that they go get into later doesn't think that 64% is an A. If you go to your job and you have work to be done and you consistently only complete 64% of it, you are not a top-notch employee. If you're a lawyer and you have a bunch of cases and only 64% of your cases are you able to come up with a positive outcome and judgment, then you're probably not the best lawyer. You see what I'm saying? So if we don't give them the idea that this is unacceptable, guess what they're going to do? They're going to pass that acceptance on to their kids, my grandkids, your grandkids. And then we're going to have 2 or 3 generations of goofy ass people before somebody wakes up and says, what the hell just happened? I know it's harsh. I know. The people, I know. It's harsh. It's harsh. It's harsh. But it has to be said. Bring back chores. Remember that? Remember chores? Remember waking up on a Saturday and you couldn't even touch the TV before you did whatever your chore was? Bring back discipline. And I don't mean physical discipline. I mean discipline, timing, routine. That's how people win in this world. That's how people win in this world. People can say what they want about Trump, but let's just be honest. This fool was not a politician before he was the president. Like he went from dude, like regular dude, not regular, but you know what I'm saying, like a civilian with no military background, married 7,000-8,000 times, just the total opposite, and went straight to president. Now, you can tell me that he's not the nicest guy in the world, but I, for no reason, would believe that an idiot could do that. And I think it was a reward system. He needed the reward that came along with the presidency. He got tired of stuff, and he said, you know what? I want to try to change this from the other side. And then he did it. But it took a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of thinking for that to even happen. But if he was just crappy his whole life and always did things at 64%, then there would be none of that. Anybody who's excelled, you can ask them. Anybody that's got their own successful business or their own successful hustle, they will all, you can look at basketball players who are great players, LeBrons, the Kobe's, the Michael Jordans, you name them. Every last one of them is going to tell you hard work, dedication, discipline. None of that shit is done at 64%. So if we tell these kids the 64% completion of a task is A-level work, we're screwing them up. We're screwing them up. We're screwing them up. And then when we realize that they've got that idea and we don't put a foot in it, we screw them up even more. Because you are allowed forgiveness for the mistakes that you don't know you make. But once you are brought into the blind spot, as it's called, and you are given that information, and you can say, oh man, I wasn't supposed to do that. You then have an opportunity and now a responsibility to go handle it. And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. But think about the world that you're creating and leaving behind for your grandkids. And I'm not even talking about on a political sense. I'm just talking about regular people, because that's who we're going to associate with. That's who you're going to see. That's who you're going to bump into. That's who you're going to be working with, is regular people. So if you don't even know etiquette yet or how to hold, doors for people, not even just women, hold a door for a person coming behind you. It's a nice thing to do. And you don't even have that concept yet because you've been so self-involved because the world is just spoiling. Just spoiling the hell out of them. You get it because you asked for it, not because you worked for it, and that's not how it works. You get it because you work for it. Everything that people have, you ask anybody that's successful at something, especially for an extended period of time, and every last one of them going to tell you it took a reward system, it took failures, it took people telling them they couldn't do it. It's going to tell, but what are we telling the kids? We're not telling them that. We're not helping them grow internally by letting them fail, by cutting them off from the things that they don't actually control the second they start to think they control it. You don't run this house. I will cut every device in this off right now. Can't even do that. Then they go to school, "Greg, cut me off from the internet." And then it'll be like, oh, that's mental abuse in today's world. So like I said, it's not all on one side. It's a community problem. The community is not communicating correctly. And the community includes everybody, the teachers, the police, the fire department, you name it. The whole community is letting these kids down. When we didn't put up a super fight, when things moved slow back in COVID, I knew the kids were done. I knew it. And I feel bad about that. But what was I going to do? You couldn't even go anywhere. You couldn't even go to the school to complain. You send an email and you never even get a response. Nowadays, everything's digital. You can't even go into the school. They won't let you peek in on the classes anymore. Remember, you used to be able to just pop up on the kids and just pop up on your kids. They don't even want you to see what they're teaching no more. That is not cool. And then the kid comes in, you say, what did you learn in school today? And I can't tell you how many times I've heard the most basic nothingness from my children when it comes to what they actually learned in school. And I know I'm not the only one. I know some of y'all ask your kids, hey, what'd you do at school this week? And they'll be like, nothing really. Like, we did some math. And then we read something. And I'm like, no, what topics did you cover? Did you learn something about U.S. history? Did you learn something about biology? Did you understand some new equation in math? Tell me you learned something. And the kids ain't learning nothing because they only got to do 64% of the work to get an A. So you tell me who's the real problem. They talking about dismantling the Department of Education. I'm thinking we need more resources behind the Department of Education. We need real people running these departments. People who aren't lifelong politicians and stuff, like regular folks. I was on a council twice. That was just regular people, and we got a lot done for the Board of Education in Anne Arundel County that way, in Maryland, right? All because it was regular people who had regular kids, and they just wanted to say their piece, and we all worked together. We were from different areas, black, white, there was males, females. You know what I'm saying? It was a very diverse group of people. And those people were able to work together for the sake of the children. So I'm getting ready to close it out on you. I'm getting ready to. But before I do, make sure that when you come around here to this channel, that you have no qualms about whether or not you want to like, subscribe, share, hit the bell. Make sure you jump on the subreddit. That's Purge the BS or Purge of the BS. I think it's both of them. Jump on the subreddit. I'm taking suggestions on topics, and soon we're going to do the call-in show once I get a few people in the chat. So this is happening. We are purging the BS, and we can purge it together, but I'm telling you right now, give your kids a reward system, and it will reward the rest of us. And if you do not do this, and we end up with another generation of weirdos, I don't know whose fault that is, but what I do know is that, my friends, is the bullshit. I'll see y'all tomorrow.